Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. We'll be the first ones to kick it off. My name's Bill Morrow. I'm the chapter president for the Alamo chapter, and I have the esteemed pleasure to introduce Mr. Gerry Smothers. He's the program manager for NETCENTS-2. Mr. Smothers sets the vision for the programs and manages the execution of the contract. Now, NETCENTS-2, as you know, is not just one contract. It's made up of 6 IDIQ contracts valued at more than $24 billion. And in last year alone, NETCENTS-2 had $1.5 billion in contract task orders in support of the worldwide Air Force mission. Mr. Smothers he's also a retired officer and has more than 40 years of experience in government service. He has extensive knowledge of business and acquisition and holds a Level 3 Program Management Acquisition certification. Ladies and gentlemen, the Program Manager for NETCENTS-2, Mr. Gerry Smothers.
So am I on? Sounds like I'm on. The tech guys did their thing. I get away from the echo. So welcome, Bill. I appreciate that introduction and the opportunity to get out of LA. And by that I mean lower Alabama. So my boss was gracious enough to let me travel after we got the invitation from the local chapter and Lieutenant General Shea. And as I walked around and talked to folks, began to see how I could help you. And so my whole purpose here is not death by PowerPoint. So I told my staff by this time in the afternoon you were probably really ready to talk about things that were of interest to you. And so I've got a very small group. We've been doing town halls at Lackland and the other bases. And at any time if you have a question, I'll just entertain the questions, slide by slide. So with that, I'm going to move on and get started. So the smart people that work for me are the program managers, and they're the key staff that you see here. So if you're a government civilian employee, or you're a contractor or vendor, and you want to know very specifically your area happens to be application services, then you want to talk to Ms. Gina Howard, who's really the brains behind the operation, and she's the application services program manager. We have a very fine gentleman, Pat Quinn, who runs our NETCENTS-1 and EISM programs for us, mainly dealing with closeout. Pat's one of the guys on the staff that's close to 50 years of government service. So you can see, by and large, we have a very, very experienced group there. Mr. Tom Smith has recently taken over the products contract, and we stole him away from Eglin Air Force Base. He's been on about 6 months now, and very heavily involved with multiple engineering degrees. And Tom is one of those guys that if you've got an hour or two of your day and you really want to talk net-centric products and how they're supported in the network, then he's your guy to talk to. Ms. Kelly Bryant is our application services full and open program manager. I just brought her on from the contracting side of the house, and she's doing great things for application services full and open. Our network operations small business manager is Mr. Johnny Mize. NetOps small business wound up with about 78 million in overall task orders last year, so they're steadily improving. And as I joke with her very often, Ms. Bern Hollinger is the NetOps full and open program manager, and we joke with her, if you're familiar with the Maytag repairman concept, she is not fully employed most of the time in NetOps full and open, and she's working other projects for us. But the point is that's the key staff that we have. And that's one of the questions I get asked most often by industry is, who can I contact? Where do I turn? How can I do business with the Air Force? And so for this briefing, I thought I would provide you with the program managers so that you could get in better contact with them. I was also brave enough, you see, to put my email address up there, and I'm really fighting for feedback on this series of trips. I want to know what your thoughts and your opinions are on how well we're doing in NetCents. You may have heard in the introduction that NetCents last year did approximately $1.5 billion in task orders, sales, products, services worldwide, and that exceeded our expectation quite a bit for last year. The news that I have to bring you this year is that as vendors, I'm trying to lower your expectations for sales and task orders. We've been through what I call the spring round of budget meetings, met with the House and Senate Armed Services Committee IT staffers, and so I think that what I bring to you today is a realistic vision of where we're headed for Air Force IT with regards to the NetCents. Our bottom line that we anticipate for this year is around $700 million in task orders and sales, which is quite a reduction from last year. I think that due to the budget ramifications, this may be the slowest years that we've had since sequester. So I know that's not good news for you, but I'm going to try to tell it to you like it is. There are a lot of reasons for that. You heard perhaps the Secretary of the Air Force speak today about changing the process and moving funding from enterprise solutions to cyber and other critical mission needs. And I can attest to you that I have seen that in the last 3 or 4 months. That's predominantly where the budget is headed. Not so much in O&M operations, application services, but in preparing to defend the network. And I expect the budget to be pretty evenly split about $400 million in product buys, and the remaining $300 million to be split between NetOps, small business, and application services. Anybody here not familiar at all with NetCents? Okay, great. So I'm not gonna bore you with some of the slides that I have prepared. I'll just say when you think of NetCents, many of you that I know are teammates on the NetCents contracts had a different perception going into the NetCents series of contracts. When we think of NetCents and we look at NetCents going forward, that's predominantly a network operation. And I want you to think of NetCents not as buying desktops, laptops, printers, cell phones, Microsoft. Those are all done through other contracting vehicles. None of that is really on NetCents. So the core business of what we do are network operations and what I call furnish, equip, and install between buildings at a base and inside the network. That's predominantly what we do. We're talking Cisco, Juniper routers, storage devices, those type things within the network. Does that make sense? For application services, those are mostly the legacy apps that we deal with out of the Montgomery River region. The Program Executive Office for Business Systems, where I work, and it's predominantly AFMC, as you'll see in some of the other slides. Who we support, very limited except for NetOps. Other than NetOps, you have to have a tie-in back to the Air Force through the joint mission and able to get you to the other vehicles that we have. NetOps is open, DoD and federal government wide. So now I'm really getting to the focus that I think that you folks want to hear is, where do we buy, what do we buy, and who the customers are that we think that are coming to our contract. This percentage is flipped. In 2014, about 70% of everything that we did was AFMC basis. And so for last year, I was a bit surprised that only 43% of what we did was at AFMC basis. And I think that reflects some of the network consolidation and the data center consolidation that we've seen. We're not buying as many storage devices, and I'm talking about servers, Dell servers and all flavors, because of the data center consolidation. So the money is not flowing as much as it is to the AFMC bases as it is to ACC, Space Command, and also AMC. So we've had a really nice partnership developed with U.S. Transcom, and more than 20% of everything that we did last year was out of headquarters AMC and Transcom. So that's kind of the flow of the funding, if you will, and that's what I'm trying to project. And this is what we do. If you ask me what is the biggest product category that we have in NetCents, it's routers. So I can't quite tell this year if it's going to be Cisco routers or Juniper routers. I tried to get some intel from the Juniper guys that were here, and I would say it depends. When I go out to the base level and I talk to the A6 folks, they really want the Air Force to buy, seems to me, more Cisco routers. That's where the training is, and I see some of you smiling, but that's where the training is. That's been the prior investment. But the Juniper routers have been very, very popular for a lot of reasons with a lot of our customers. And it seems to me that they're almost co-equal in buying potential for this year. So as we go forward, you can expect more of that. I think that due to the FCC and the licensing requirements, that more and more land mobile radios will be purchased. And so that was a big growth area for the NetCents contract in the last 2 years. Approximately 22 million in land mobile radios have been purchased in the last 2 years from the NetCents contract. I think we're looking at a deadline for licensing that people may have to move by the end of 2018 off of the current land mobile radios. And so you're looking at potential buys, and you're looking at potential consolidation in this area. Our a FICA contracting group out of Wright-Patterson is leading the charge to commoditize some of the land mobile radio purchases, and we look forward to them taking some of those responsibilities, frankly, away from NetCents and compete the land mobile radios on a separate BPA in future buys, because frankly, we think that we can treat that more as a commodity and get a better price for our customers. Questions so far? I've got a terrible echo up here. I hope you can hear me over the folks in the back. So we're just working with it, however that may be. I understand that I sound a lot better on the actual recording. Okay, good. So 3 weeks ago, I went up and briefed Lieutenant General Bender, and I spent quite a bit of time with Ricky Hawkins, A6, and working through all of the budget that we see coming. So I try to balance what the program managers tell me and our marketing and data and research calls with what the budget folks tell the House and Senate Armed Service Committee staffers that they're going to have for the coming year. So I caveat that by saying this is Gerry's list, right? So I will tell you that my forecast for last year was bad because I stood up and had my boss stand up before the Montgomery Information Technology Summit and say we're going to have a lot of business for NetOps full and open. And I can explain one-on-one why some of that didn't happen. But this is what I see for your top 10 investments, if you will, for 2016. So I asked my staff, what if somebody asked me about the TEO Air National Guard effort? And they said, Gerry, just tell them to Google it rather than you try to explain it. So I didn't bring an engineer here with me today, but if you go through, I think that those are the top 10 investment opportunities that you have in communications and information technology for this year, based on dollar amount. And I can see I need to get out of the way of the money shot. Okay. So, interestingly enough, I'm prepared to give you current information on where we see things going in PEOBS and the top programs. And so I was circulating in the conference this morning, and one of the gentlemen, I don't know if he wants me to mention his name, said, oh, by the way, Gerry, MROI was just put on a strategic pause. So sure enough, I called back to the staff, and the letter came out yesterday where MROI was put on a strategic pause for a number of reasons. They're looking at the whole enterprise one more time. And so If I had the capability, I would scratch MROI off the top of my list, but these are what I see as the remaining 9 opportunities by dollar value that you have in PEOBS. So obviously those things could change. Someone asked me, what about the personnel systems? What about AFIPS, AFIPS? I heard that briefed as a relook, for some of those military personnel systems. They didn't say pause, they didn't say re-baseline, but a relook. So I'm trying to find out what that really means. And I think that will be coming out in the next several weeks, but they didn't quite make the list. Someone always asks me the DEAMS question. Anybody here from the DEAMS program office? Okay, great. So if anybody can figure out DEAMS, please come, let me know. But that's a difficult nut to crack as far as, what's their spend actually going to be for this year or next year. Okay, so I have a number of slides I'm going to go through really quickly so I can kind of get to the end and answer your questions. These are basic slides on application services. I'll say if you have any general questions, contact Gina Howard or Kelly Bryant, and they can answer those for you. For products, my program manager is Tom Smith. Products seems to be doing extremely well with regard to competing for against GSA, NASA SOUP, and other contracts. Anybody know why that is? So my friends in the GSA have a price list that they negotiate at the beginning of their contracts and at certain periods. So for NetCents, there's not a price list. So if you're a buyer, you need to know that when you put out your RFQ, your request for quote, that for each and every one of those, that's competed among the 25 NetCents products vendors. And so you get that competition, which causes the price to be lower. One of the things I do for NetCents is on our public-facing website. You can Google NetCents, and it comes up, netcents.af.mil, and I have that listed in the briefing. But we do what we call Products Benchmark Report. And so every month we take 100 items. I don't care what 100 items. You can call our specialist and you can say, I want you to compare product X, Y, and Z for next month because we don't think you're getting a good price. Well, they run that 100 set of products through a comparison with GSA, NASA SOUP, and 2 or 3 others every month. And so every month it comes out to be 5 or 6% less for the NetCents price on the total list. Now, I'm not saying that each and every product is less expensive, because it's not. You're going to find some in there that are better buys on GSA, NASA SOUP, whatever it may be. And so we always say, warfighter first, but taxpayer always. And I tell my customers, I'm a contract facilitator, if you can find a better price and you can do a business justification, then let's talk about it. And I come back and I challenge my vendors, hey, why are we not getting a better price or as good a price as GSA or whoever on that contract? But the thing I ask customers, like Al, to factor in is that there's no fees for the NetCents contract. And so if you go out to GSA, NASA SOUP, and other contracts, you're going to pay a fee. They're lowering the fees, but it's going to be somewhere between 0.5% and 3%, depending on the size of your orders. And so you have to factor that in as a taxpayer when you're out competing for those task order awards. And we ask our customers to please look at that. The other thing that we do is that we post every single task order, and I've gone back and had my application services folks put in the awarded dollar value amount, but we publish every single one of those. So if you compete on a task order and you want to see what the winning bid was for the previous quarter, you can go back for products or whatever it is, task order by contract number, and you can do your research if you're a contracting officer, and you can see what it costs to purchase X, Y, and Z on the NetCents contract. So if you're going to go out and do a similar or like purchase, the whole point is to give you the opportunity to have that bargaining, negotiating piece with the vendor so that you can get the best price for what you do. So as part of, if you go to our NetCents website and you look on the left-hand side under making every dollar count, then you can see that information there. And we're trying to be open and transparent. That's our whole point. And everything that we do on the website is to help the customers, help the vendors, be open and transparent, and get the best site with the best price that we possibly can for our customers. Okay, this is the bread and butter of our business. I don't think that we're going to have a lot of business in FY15 for the full and open, if you will, for the large contracts. We've gone out with extensive data requests, and I don't see anything on the horizon. And this is usually the point at which my boss, Herb Hunter, tells me that I need to explain to the audience, particularly those that are NetOps vendors on the full and open, why I missed my forecast last year. So last year we were looking at the National Capital Region contract, very large contract. Lockheed Martin held the contract. We expected it to go large business for this go-around. Surprisingly, to me at least, and you'll know this if you follow it on Herb or Fed Biz Ops, that contract is NetOps small business. So that was a very large $300, $400 million contract that I expected from all indications and going through the strategy meetings to go large. They actually went NetOps small. And what that did was, interestingly enough, is it opened up the door in that planning phase because we looked at the capabilities of small business, and small business teaming with larger businesses offered a tremendous range of services and capabilities to the Air Force. And so that one event was a seismic shift in the NetCents world that moved other task orders that we saw planned for full and open to go to NetOps small business. Does that make sense? So sorry, I don't see a lot of business coming for full and open on the NetOps side. In fact, I will just be absolutely honest and straightforward. I got zero back in all my marketing and data calls when I asked those specific questions to the A6s and to the contracting officers at the MAGCOM level. One of the things that I will talk about tomorrow in the small business panel that has distinguished the companies that we have on NetCents in the small business arena are the certifications. So if you're a vendor and you're looking to team or partner with the current NetCents vendors, then your certifications are vitally important. So CMMI Level 3, CMMI Level 2, the ISO standards, if your company, if you're a small vendor, has those certifications and you can provide qualified people. I know that I have people on the NetCents contract, vendors on the NetCents contract, that are looking to team with you in the San Antonio area, at Peterson in the space arena. So certifications matter, they're important. The second piece to the certifications that I don't necessarily have on the slides, and the differentiator I see, and those who team and those who don't team, are the program managers to have PMI certifications. So one of the things that our qualifiers that our government folks are looking for when you submit those key resumes, when you're competing, is how to make your task order, how to make your proposal more than a paper promise by having PMI level or PMI certifications for those program managers. So again, it lends to the competency of your company in being a good teammate on some of our programs. Anybody ever used Halfway before? So, good news from my friend Kevin Lee. I think the long-awaited Halfway 4.0 release should happen the end of this month. And so that's the CAC enablement and kind of bringing it into at least the 20th century. Pun intended, right? So in NetCents, as a customer, I very much look forward to the e-commerce tools, to email, to the robust capabilities for business to business, that 5.0 and some of those other releases, bring to us. But at least what this does is it brings us to a faster capability than we have currently with Halfway. So, hope I haven't confused you. If you're new to NetCents, the way that you get to NetCents to do an order if you're a government customer is you go to Halfway. Halfway is the Amazon-like front end to actually place your orders. One of the initiatives that we have that you'll see next month from NetCents is we've created our own NetCents Biz Ops Page. It's very much like the Fed Biz Ops page. And so you're going to see in one place, one single listing for the entire month, a rolling list of those opportunities that you have for NetCents. So for the time being, you will still have to go through the Halfway process, but we're going to make this more and more robust as we go forward, the NetOps business page. So my idea is that it's going to look pretty much like the Fed Biz Ops page, with the caveat that only NetCents vendors can respond to those requests for proposal and requests for quotes. But I think I can get it to you much faster. I think I can put it in one place. I think I get around some of the size limitations and other technical issues that you have with Halfway today. Here you see the Halfway website. I'm not going to go into detail on the RFPs because I really want to get to the end of this. One thing that my contracting officer did ask me to talk about in a little bit more detail regarding government purchase on credit cards. And so there was a lot of confusion last year. There were a couple of Air Force audits, and there was at least one rewrite of the memo regarding the statutory limits on purchasing on NetCents and other IDIQ contracts using government purchase credit cards. So the confusion was that people thought they were only limited to $3,000 unless they were a CO. What the new AFI came out and said, and the new memo said last year, was that the average comm squadron individual with a GPC card could order up to $25K off of NetCents. This year, what are we doing? Well, this year I would like to see that limit raised to $50K for the average user at the comm squadron. $25K, in my opinion, is clearly not, the right limit. So first I got them to go back to $25K, and this year I'm pushing to $50K. I will tell you one of the things that Francine will probably talk about tomorrow is that if you have a contracting officer with a GPC card, then their limit can be much, much higher. With SOCOM and CENTCOM, I've seen millions of dollars purchased on the NetCents contracts with a GPC. So when you talk about agility and the speed of purchases, particularly in the contracting area, I think this is one thing that we need to move towards, is raising those limits and allowing people to have the same speed of need that we get in SOCOM and CENTCOM today and some of the other MAGCOMs by using the GPC. Give the authority to an acquisitions official or a contracting officer so they can make those $1 million purchases at the end of the year. That doesn't relieve them from making the necessary preparations throughout the year that they're required to do to make those purchases, but at the end of the process, it saves them a lot of time and effort. If they're spring-loaded and ready to go and they've done their market research and they've got their order ready, it's just much easier to do it from a GPC. Follow me? So it's a clear innovation that we're trying to make happen for this year. One of the advantages that we have in NetCents, I believe, over GSA and many other IDIQs is that we have a team of technical experts. I have subject matter experts, engineering degrees in all of the various areas to ensure that we help the customers with the right network standards. And so they actually maintain many of the network standards that we have for the Air Force. And the customer at a MAGCOM or a base shop who is crafting a requirement for a network capability can send their requirements to our technical team, and our technical team will go through those and communicate back with the customer to make sure that the requirements meet the standards. And so with their blessing, it makes sure a requirements package flow through with amazing speed at the base level, and you get it right. So Mr. Walter Scott is my chief engineer. and you can reach him or us at that NetCents website. Two of the things that we added for our customers that were new last year was a training portal, and we continue to add to that every month to be able to help the customer to write better requirements and provide you better standards from the industry side. The other thing that we did for last quarter, and we'll do it again this year, for contracting officers, we provided an express lane. So for the fourth quarter, we didn't put our contracting officers in the queue with all of our other customers. We gave them an email and a phone number capability where we guaranteed them we'd respond within 24 hours to any request. So the normal response time in August, September is 72 hours plus, just because of resource constraints. But with the contracting officers express lane, if you're a CO or a technical specialist in contracting, you know, you've got the number, you've got the email, and the folks will respond back in 24 hours. I know they will because I put that in all their appraisals as a check, right? So here's the website. I think that we have filled that with lots of templates and documents and things to make it easier for the customers to go out and make their orders. I'm fighting for your feedback, as well as fighting the feedback from, you know, whatever is going on in the background there. But so I'm fighting for your feedback. If you have any way that you see that I can potentially make the website better, or the team can make the website better to serve the customers, please let me know. This is an example of some of the documents that we have on there now. I will tell you that our user's guide is about 300 pages long, and the team will be releasing the much reduced user's guide. So, one of the things I'm working on this year is my patience. I teach 11th and 12th grade boys Sunday school at Casada Baptist Church. It's a very small church in Millbrook, Alabama. We have one red light, one stop sign, and one flashing light. So I don't have to compete with competing audio in a lot of cases, but I do have to compete for attention. And I can get a cup of coffee and get fired up, you know, to speak louder than any other, presentation that's going on. But I'm near the end. Products lessons learned, I'm going to show those up on the screen, but I'm going to talk predominantly about NETCENTS-2 lessons learned and where do we go from here. And I'm going to try to beat you to the punch with some of your questions. Some of you are going to ask me about on-ramps to the current NETCENTS-3 or to the current NETCENTS-2 contract vehicle. And I'm going to tell you I'm working on NETCENTS-3. I'm not working on on-ramps to the current vehicle for a lot of reasons. Resource-wise, we're devoting our resources to NETCENTS-3 and not to on-ramps, because I think I can do NETCENTS-3 much faster. And as my boss likes to say, I think we've discovered how to show them what right looks like for contracting for IDIQs. And I've made a part-time living traveling around the country, talking to the Army, the GSA, and other organizations about what we did wrong, perhaps, with NETCENTS-2 and how to do that better. And we hit upon the concept that we call Gerry's open concept contracting. Anybody ever hear that? So I just added my name to it. It's like Go CM. But anyway, if you haven't heard that, I would invite you to take a look at open method contracting, because I think that's the right way to head, particularly for IDIQs. In IDIQs, what we found is that really competition occurs at the task order level. So having said that, why do I need a pricing source selection team, you know, if the competition is going to be at the task order level? The other thing with regard to the openness is that we'll publish a list, we'll go out for a source selection, we'll publish a list. I don't know if I want to call them qualifications or evaluations, but I'll give you some examples. If you're a company and you have CMMI level 3, we will say that's one of our evaluation factors. and we'll tell you how many points we're going to award for your company having that CMMI level 3. It may be 1,000 points. If you're going to be a cloud provider and you have evidence that you have successfully migrated a system to the cloud and you submit that, you will self-rate yourself, and that might be worth 500,000 points. And so each company under this concept will know how many points that they have accrued in this evaluation before we ever get into source selection. If you look at how Oasis and I think currently Alliant is doing their source selections, then that's proven definitely to be a time saver, a resource saver on my part. And because of the openness of absolutely everything that we do and the transparency, then you will know if you're company number 70 on the list or company number 80 or 100. I don't think it'll take too much skill and resources on your part to see where you rack and stack. And so when I award the company number 70 and you look at your points and your company number 150, then you know that you didn't meet those criteria. And by publishing the criteria, then you also know what you should be shooting for the other evaluations. Make sense? Great. All right, now for my favorite part, I kind of went through that pretty quickly, but small group, and I'm just going to be absolutely informal. Any questions at all? I think I have plenty of time, and if I don't get all those answered by 4:30, then I'll stick around. I'll be here until 6. But any questions at all? Man, I thought I did an amazing job. But thank you for your questions.
I apologize for walking in late. I was in the wrong theater.
Is this
reintroduce yourself to me.
Is this Theater 3 or Theater 33? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I forgot that was something else.
So I'm Gerry Smothers. I'm the program manager for NETCENTS and the branch chief for the Enterprise Services Division. And I joked I'm from LA, Lower Alabama. Maxwell Gunner. Yes, sir.
So just to confirm, Athway is only available for NETCENTS-2 prime contract holders?
It is.
So as a non-NETCENTS holder, I can't see anything that's coming out on NETCENTS?
You cannot.
Will your NETCENTS Biz Ops thing allow me to see them in the
It's
future?
open to the public.
And when? April, May?
Yeah, so there are a couple of hurdles that we have to clear yet. It's ready to go, and we hope to start being able to publish at the end of March. So that's an advantage, if you will, but again, I'm trying to drive openness and transparency and frankly get the most bang that I can for the buck. Now, those will be limited. It will say on there that contracting officers will not talk to you unless you're a NETCENTS vendor. So there's a whole paragraph legal statement that comes with each one of those.
Sure, but as I understand it, the benefit is to your own points was that if I have something that maybe a current NETCENTS Prime might be able to utilize, I can approach one of them and say, hey, I saw this on Net Biz Ops, you want to team with me?
Yeah, so you might want to talk to your friend over in Technica or LGS.
They are my friends, by the way, Technica.
Pardon me?
They are my friends.
Oh, well, good for you. So what I hope is that more and more small businesses will have the opportunity to partnership with the 53 small businesses we already have on the contract. I don't think there's a lot of business coming for the other 24 who are on the large end of the contract. But there are certain niches that I think they're really going to be important. They're usually outside of the scope of what we do now with regard to security and regard to cyber. And so if you happen to be from one of those companies that, particularly in this area in San Antonio, offer those skills, then there are task orders that are coming up that people are desperately looking for those.
Thank you. NETCENTS 3 when? 7 years, 5 years, 3 years?
No, so due to the way that we're progressing, I think we're going to start in 2018, and that will time with the approximate end that we have of the app services contract and others. And my boss doesn't think I'm crazy when I tell him I can do this in a year. I know NETCENTS-2 took from 2007 to 2015, but if you look at the history of protests for Oasis, how many successful protests were there on the Oasis contract? 0. And so if I'm open and upfront and transparent from day one, and we use the most current standards that we have, then I think that transparency and the give and take and the marketing research, all the things that we do, give you the same opportunity that you desire for NETCENTS-3.
When you're talking products and loading those on like an IDIQ, like a soup, when you're talking products and adding those on like how NASA soup or something, how long does that typically take to get something new added?
So we don't have a products list, right? So the
Right.
customer writes every requirement.
So if they had
And
to
if it's
add
something new like a 3D printer, we just, so in 2015, we did about $52 million worth of business with the Air Force Research Lab. And they did some really amazing things. And you'll start to see a lot of that with the Raven project and things that are coming out. I have a captain that works for me that is very involved in innovation. He recently briefed the SECAF with doing some really, really good work in an area where there's a system, and it's very appropriate to talk about for today, but what it does is it tracks and pinpoints the sounds of gunshots on a given installation, and then reports that back to fire and security police instantaneously. And it has, according to everything I've seen and heard, an amazing capability to pinpoint it. And so if a weapon is fired, it can come back and give you the exact location where that weapon was fired, the most probable type of weapon that it was, and on and on. So there are a lot of innovations that are like that the customer just writes the requirement, and you don't have to go through a products list. The hottest thing that I see right now is 3D printers on the product side. A lot of customers being able to do that, particularly at our logistics centers with work that they're doing. I don't think they're quite ready to do a 3D F-35, but they are making parts for non-critical standard machinery off of amazing 3D printers at a fraction of the cost. Did that help you on your question?
Yeah, I guess. So, say for example, we have a base customer that needs to upgrade part of their microwave network or something like that. Can they still use NETCENTS to do that as far as procuring hardware?
Of course, that's the bread and butter of what we do. Right. Furnish, equip, install with a product. So many times the customer may not know what the latest and greatest product is, and so you go into that customer's program office or area, you educate the customer, you give them the technical specifications, and they in turn submit it to our office for a scope review. And so our engineers look at it and say, yes, it meets the technical standards, it's good to go, and then they can purchase that off of the NETCENTS contract. We had a gentleman in the very back. No?
Thank you. First of all, as a NETCENTS-2 Products Prime, a SOUP 5 Prime, and a GSA schedule holder, I applaud the lack or absence of a cataloging process. It's very Prime friendly as well as customer friendly, so I think you're way ahead of the other contract holders, if you will. Second thing is what would be helpful as a Prime is if there was a mechanism for interfacing our internal CRM and ordering systems with your AFWay so that we can use our system to feed you no bid and bids without having to separately go in and out of your system. I think you'd get better reporting in that regard. And the last thing I'd like to say is with all the app services primes, the NetOp primes, and the product primes, a NETCENTS-2 summit where they could all show up, set up booths, and form partnerships would lend itself to better serving the Air Force community.
Thank you. And what company are you with, sir?
M2 Technology.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, for the gentleman that's not a prime that would like to sell the Air Force and is looking for a prime, we're always looking for good subcontractors.
So I appreciate your comments. I will say that we too want to automate just like you do. It's at the top of my priority list, but that's not going to happen until AFWay 5.0. or that we move to the DoD mall, one of those two things. I have about 23 people that spend each and every day tackling all those Excel spreadsheets and doing all the analysis and posting. So that in the last 18 months, I had a GAO audit, an Air Force agency audit. They lived in my office, and they also went through all of that. And their number one recommendations were, you need to have a business-to-business interface. It would save you. And so I keep telling my boss, Herb Hunter. So when you see Mr. Hunter, and I think the next opportunity that you'll have is the Montgomery Information Technology Summit, which is almost exactly your second point there. I don't think they allow us to set up vendor booths anymore. But this year, again, at the Montgomery Information Technology Summit, to give them a plug in May, we're going to invite all the CEOs of all the NetCents companies to come. You may recall last year, Dr. LaPlante was there and spoke with all your CEOs. We're going to do the same thing this year, a little bit broader scope, but my new PEO, Rich Aldridge, will kind of chair that. And Ms. Thomas will be there as the keynote speaker, replacing Dr. LaPlante. And we hope that we can bring some of the capability of the team out of that MITS conference that we didn't perhaps have last year. And our focus this year is partnering with the folks over at Maxwell, and we're doing a cyber track. Because frankly, if you're looking for where the Air Force is headed and where the spending is moving from, just like the Secretary of the Air Force said, it's moving more and more toward the cyber side and less out of O&M and routine network business. But thank you, appreciate that. Great partner for him too. Sir. Am I over time, Bill? Okay. All right. After this is officially over, I'll be here till 6. We'll stand in the back.
You mentioned that some things hadn't worked out as you thought they would, like full and open NetOps, funding. Do you have procedures in place to adjust contract ceilings? Say move money from NetOps full and open to NetOps small, or add money to NetApps small?
So, I'm sorry, go ahead. So with regard to NetOps, we're not anywhere close to our ceiling. We're still looking at almost $6 billion in ceiling. And so I think we're good to go NetOps full and open, NetOps small business. We do have the capability to, of course, add to the ceiling. And some of my app services partners and teammates were asking me about increasing the ceiling on application services small business. And we're certainly doing that. And so those folks should see the contract mod on that sometime in the next week or two. We're interested in the competition that may occur between application services small business and application services full and open. And then we'll do our annual execution reviews at the end of October to determine if we need to further adjust the ceiling with regard to application services. I don't see any need for a ceiling adjustment for NetOps, because frankly our forecast for this year for NetOps is about $150 million. Thank you, Bill.
Well, sir, thank you very much. On behalf of General Shea, AFC International, all of our participants, attendees, myself as a chapter president, the first event for TechNet Air, you were a part of it, so hopefully you'll look back on history and appreciate everything that went on. Thank you so much,
yes, sir.
And there's a coin from AFC International.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.